In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at one of my favorite features inside Harmony, and that is animation lip syncing. Toon Boom has really nailed it with this one and made your job as an animator far easier than you would ever believe when it comes to doing animation. But there are a few things that we have to keep in mind while we're doing it, and that's what we're going to learn about in this video. Inside the help documents for Harmony, there's a section on sound and lip sync, and it goes into some detailed instructions on how to do it. The key thing to remember when we're doing animation lip syncing is we don't need a mouth for every letter. We need it for phonetic shapes. So we have certain phonemes that are part of the English language, but what we'll find is for most Western European languages that these different phonetic shapes are going to work okay, that you can just feed the audio in, Toon Boom will analyze it, and then it will give you back the result that you need. So what we do is we have to create specific mouths to go with it. So if we look at, we have a mouth chart here from Toon Boom, and this mouth chart, it works, but it's not entirely clear when we see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, and what does that mean? How are we going to use that? Well, what it is we will be using drawing substitution. So we will, on the mouth layer, create different mouth shapes, and for each mouth shape, it's going to correspond to a specific phonetic sound. So we have the closed mouth consonant, open mouth consonants, the sound, A sound, so A and E, then the O, U, and then the F, and then we have a non-talking or silent, so the closed mouth where it's just a neutral expression. Now, if we want to get some more inspiration on that, what we can do is just a quick Google search for animation lip sync mouth shapes, and we'll see that we have all of these different phoneme mouth charts that go along with it, and they all pretty much correspond to the same different mouths that we're looking for, the consonants and the vowel sound. So we have closed mouth, open mouth. Now, a couple key things to keep in mind when we're drawing mouths is that the teeth are fixed to the skull. So the lips can move, the jaw and tongue will move, but the upper teeth do not. So they only move with the head itself. So when you're drawing the mouth, you need to pay attention for consistency to make sure that the upper teeth remain in the same relative position on the head each time. So we can take a look at something like this and see where we have the different shapes, what's happening, the closed mouth consonant, open mouth consonant where the teeth are together, F and V where the upper teeth are biting the lower lip, and then the E's, O's, and U's, as well as then sometimes you'll have an L sound. Harmony will not automatically put in the L sound, the L and where the tongue is hitting the back of the upper teeth. So if you want that mouth shape to be part of your character's lip sync animation, you will have to manually add that in, and we'll take a look at how you might pull that off in a moment. So we have these different mouths that we can work with, and we will make them correspond to it using a naming convention, capital letters A through G and the letter X. When we do that, Harmony can then automatically assign the mouth shape to the correct phonetic sound, and the result is like magic. So our next step is to actually start creating the additional mouth shape. So I have a basic character started, and now I'm going to demonstrate how we can go about creating these different mouth shapes that we want to work with in Harmony. So in this character, I have separated things out so that I have a body layer, a head layer, the mouth, gotta click correctly, and finally the eyes on their own layer. because then what I can do is I can create a simple blink animation, which then does make my character a little bit more engaging. While it's animating, it doesn't feel quite as stiff and unnatural if the eyes just stay open the whole time while we're looking at it. So what we need to do is we need to create our different mouth shapes. So I am going to extend out the exposure for this layer here, so I can either click out and hit F5, or I can hit the plus key or shift equals, and we can see how we can extend it out. And now I can go to the mouth. I'm not going to extend that out because I'll be creating new drawings on each frame, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Then we'll, so now with this, we'll extend this out and extend the body out. So I'm doing this so that I can create my artwork. So now when I move to this next frame, I can't really see what's going on, but I could now turn on onion skinning for the mouth layer so we can get a sense of what that mouth shape was. Now when we're drawing our different mouth shapes, it sometimes is going to be easier, and I'm going to encourage you to do this, is to do it with line art only and then go back and color it, because then you can better see what is happening with your different mouths as you work with them. So I can see my line art in color here, and it's a little bit strong, but I'll be able to use that as a guide. So this particular character, which is loosely modeled after former President Howard Taft, has a mustache, so I get to be a little bit playful with that and move that around as he's speaking and make it just a little bit more fun and interesting for me. So this is my neutral, non-talking mouth that I'll be working with. So this mouth gets the X designation when we name this drawing. So now when I move into the next frame, what we're really doing is we're creating an additional drawing to go in our drawing substitution. So I can look in my drawing substitution and see I have empty frame, or if we wanted to see that existing one. But if I start drawing here, it will now create a new frame. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool, which I have ready, and I will grab my line color I've been working with, which is black. So now with this, the mouth is going to stretch out a little bit, because now I am creating my consonant. This is the closed mouth consonant shape. So I'm pulling the mustache out a little bit. Now if we go to the previous frame, we can see how the mouth is not opening, but it's stretching out. So I'll be using this mustache for kind of creative effect as I work with it. Now when I move to the next frame where it's empty, this is going to be an open mouth. So this is where we will have an open mouth consonant where we just see teeth as part of it. So I'll stretch the lip out and pull it down a little bit. And then we'll have a few teeth. And the mustache is going to be similar to the previous one. So we can see neutral, closed consonant, open consonant, but we haven't really done, open the mouth a whole lot. So now the next mouth is going to be for the eh sound, the short A, the short E, the eh. So we open it, we get to see some teeth, so I can really repeat some of what's there, but I'm going to keep it long but drop the mustache a little bit because it's just kind of how I'm feeling. I want this mouth to go. So once I have some teeth, I will want to try and this is where sometimes you will want to actually duplicate the drawing and then modify it versus redrawing so that you can maintain exactness of the mouth that's there. This time we'll open it a little bit for the, so this is again, it's the eh sound, the short E, the short A. So we can see now as I go through my different mouths, and if I turn off onion skinning, neutral, now it's going to open it up for the eh. And the next mouth is where we're going to extend it down more to make the A sound. Now, on some characters, I may want to incorporate the chin and lower jaw in with the mouth shape or do some modifications with that. So to show you how we might go about doing that here, because and in this instance, for going from the A to the A, I am going to reuse the mouth and then clean it up. So that means I will take this drawing and extend out. So shift equals, and then on this next one, I will say duplicate that drawing, so it now becomes a duplicate of it. And then I'm going to do some erasing. Because this is where I want to change. But this allow, and I think I'll change the mustache a little bit too. But now, because the mouth is going to open more, and then I'll show a little bit of his tongue. So I'll draw the tongue in the mouth, draw the lower lip. So it can go A. So it's open more. And then when we move into the O's and Oo's, those mouths I think I will want to modify the chin so I can, because that's a much more open mouth shape. So we have these different mouth shapes that we're working with. And our first step is we draw them, then we rename them, and then we import our audio and let Harmony do some magic lip syncing for us, and you get to see just how impressive everything is in the program. So now moving into my next frame here, we're going to create the E sound. So what, or I mean, not the E, it's named E, but this is the O. So this is where we'll pull the mouth open more. Teeth remain constant for the upper. And really going to let this mustache take on some personality here with that, so we can do a little bit of cleanup on the edge. And with this, I'm going to even indicate that there are some lower teeth, tongue, and going to extend down the jaw. So as we do that, we'll have to do a little bit of work. Now, another way that we can go about doing this is we can not redraw the chin and jaw, but instead use deformers. But we'll look at that in using deformers in a different video. Let's turn on onion skinning a little bit there, because I still want to there's a very pronounced chin, so I want to maintain that cleft in the chin. So if we turn this on, we can see how so the jaw is going to come down. So we'll have to paint some skin there, and we'll use the paint behind feature, which makes it really easy to paint without covering up the black lines that we've just drawn with our outlines. So now this is going to be the ooh, so this is where mustache is really, yeah, I don't like that one. Let's try again. It's going to come down. And by the onion skinning, we can now see how little of the teeth are still showing. And we'll pull that chin down. So the light table is really a useful feature while we're doing this. So now that gives me my ooh sound. And the next two that I'm looking for are my F and V. So my F, I think I'm going to, so this is where the upper teeth are biting the lower lip. I'm going to work with this drawing and copy this one and then modify it because I want kind of, it's close to that. The open mouth consonant sound, it's very close to that one. So what we can do is simply, I mean, there's lots of things I can do, but I'll just copy the artwork there, go here and paste that in. But now this is where we'll do a little bit of eraser work because the lower lip isn't down, but instead the lower lip is going to be right here. And I think I'm going to kind of rework the ends of the mustache. I want to have some fun with it. And this is part of that beauty of animation. Now we may, sometimes you'll get to a frame and go, wow, that looks a little bit harsh, the transition. But remember, these aren't about sequencing these frames. We're just creating the phonetic mouth shapes that we need. So we have non-talking neutral, closed mouth consonant, open mouth consonant, the short A sound, the A sound, the O, the OO, and then the F sound. And now the final one I want to do is going to be the the L where you put the tongue up against the teeth, which I'm going to use this as kind of a guide for it. So copy that, paste it in, but this time we can get rid of the tongue that's there. And now what I want to do is to didn't want that line in the tooth. That is going to put that there, and just going to rework the lower lip a little bit, just and I think rework the mustache as well, because again, let the mustache in this case take on some personality. Let it be a character on its own. So I've created my different mouths. Now if we turn off onion skinning, we can go through and start putting some color in on these to see how they look. So the mustache is colored with the hair color. So it's easy to choose the color, and then I can just go through each one of my frames and put that color in. Now I have my tongue color, and the don't want to color the line, want to color the mouth shape. One thing that is nice when we are working in Harmony is that we are able to, if I change the tongue color because I decide I don't like it, I can always go back or I don't have to go back, it will update every drawing that uses it. Okay, let's go into our tool properties and close small gap there so it doesn't color the teeth. And I'm just navigating through frames using comma and period as a quick way to go through my frames. Okay, now let's go get some teeth. Teeth, I'm just going to do white. All right, let's not close gap on, see if it, oh, don't want, okay, so maybe we do, want to close small gap on it so it doesn't, oh well. I'll erase that out in a moment. Okay, I'll erase it because I'm here and so I don't forget. And actually it'll be easier to just, or not. All right, fine. So we must have, oh yeah, so there's the gap in the line there, which is why when I'm trying to fill that it's being difficult. And we can see there are a few other small gaps that we will have to take care of in a little bit here, but in the meantime, let's worry about trying to color everything. And I'll be zooming in a little bit. It's going to make it easier. So in this example, I have done all of my artwork on the line art layer, so I didn't separate my color and line art in this particular example, but that is something you could do in the future. All right, so now this is where I'm going to use my paintbrush, grab some skin color, and in the paintbrush settings, I'm going to choose paint behind, because what that means is now if I go like this, we can see how it sits behind that area. So what I care about is, and we can go a little bit bigger. So if you hold down O, you can make your brush bigger while you're painting. But I'm using this to cover up the existing lines of the face so that as we switch to this, it works a little bit better. Now if I turn off Lightbox, we can see. Now if I turn off the mouth layer here, we'll see how the chin just moved. But during this coloring, it's useful to have Lightbox on so I can better see what I'm doing. So I'm just needing to make sure that I cover up any of the existing line art. Okay. Looks like we have all of our mouths in place. Turn off light table. Zoom out a little bit so we can better see what's happening. Now when I scrub through this, we can see it's like the character is talking. Now, the mouth layer is just randomly going through the mouth. So we've completed step 1, which is to create the artwork. In step 2, we will name it. Step 3, we bring in the audio and sync it. So with the artwork completed, we now move on to step 2, which is to rename each one of our drawings. If I go into my library for this drawing layer, we'll see that each one of these drawings exists, and currently they have numbers associated with them. That is what happens. So like the eyes just have a single drawing layer. The mouth has these additional ones. So what we need to do is we need to name these, but we need to name them following the convention that Toon Boom uses, which is A through G in the letter X. Now we will also have our mouth for L, so we'll name it L, but it won't automatically use that. And again, we have to put that in manually. So looking here, we have to follow these names. So I drew the mouths in the order, so we'll start with the X, and then it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So naming a drawing, the easiest way to do it is to right-click on it. So in the timeline, on that exposure, then we go under Drawings, and we'll see there's an option to rename. Now it also has a keyboard shortcut of Command D. If you're on Windows, it would be Control D. So Command or Control D allows you to rename the drawing. Now it comes up, this was drawing 1, and it has to be capital letters, not lowercase. And I will just type in the letter X and say OK. Now it seems like I can click up here, and if I rename a drawing here by just typing in a name, it actually duplicates the drawing. It doesn't rename it, it creates a new drawing with that name, which will completely make a mess out of things. So please don't rename it in the drawing substitution dialog, but instead in the timeline, click on the frame, either right click or Command or Control D, and now this one is going to be the letter A. Now I hit return and we can see it's now at the end of the list. I move to the next one. So if we right click, drawing, rename drawing, and again it's Command or Control D, this will be the letter B. The next mouth will be the letter C. The next mouth will be the letter D. The next mouth be the letter E. The next mouth will be the letter F. And finally, this mouth will be the letter G. And my additional mouth that I made for the L sound will be L. So I can now look through and see how I have each of those. Now notice I can choose and it changes what's in the timeline. This is how you can manually do it. You can also manually update it using the square bracket keys on your keyboard. So if I use the square bracket keys, I can cycle through my different mouth shapes for a given layer. And let's see, this will be L. So this is now step 2, renaming the drawings. Create the artwork, rename them. In step 3, we get to lip sync. In this third step, we're going to bring the sound into our Harmony project. So to do that, we select File, Import, Sound. It is kind of that easy. Choose the audio you want to bring in, and I hit open. And we can now see the audio is showing up with its waveform on the timeline. Now if I hit play, we don't get to hear anything. So this is where we need to realize there's 2 little buttons here that we haven't used previously. So to hear the sound, we have to click on the little speaker icon, and now when I hit play, rewind it,
I am willing to admit that
so we can see it's playing the sound. If I click the speaker with the little S next to it, that stands for scrubbing. So now, if I scrub the timeline, we can see how it is now bringing that audio to life. But what we need to do is we need to sync this audio with our animation. And to do that, I simply right-click on the audio. The very bottom is an option for lip sync. And I choose Auto Lip Sync Detection. And this is where Harmony, we can see up here, is computing lip sync information for the audio file. So it's analyzing it for each of those 8 phonetic sounds that it will look for. Then I right-click under Lip Sync and choose Map Lip Sync. And this is where I can choose which layer is going to be mapped. Now, the eye layer, I didn't make eyes to correspond to this. I could, because as we move our mouth, we often change the shape of our eyes as our face stretches and contorts and moves. So you could do that, but right now we're focused on the mouth. Now I click OK. And we can see how the mouth now continued out. And if I hit play,
I am willing to admit that war.
Okay, there we go. We'll just modify the scene length so we can hear a little bit more with it. And
has accomplished much in the progress of the world. I'm willing to admit that there are certain...
Okay, so we can see that it's working. My other layers aren't showing up because their exposure hasn't been extended. So what I can do is click at the end there and then choose my function key F5 to extend out those lower layers, then function F5 for the eyes, so that extends that out. Now if we go back to the beginning and take a look at this, and I'll zoom out a little bit so we can better see what's happening.
I am willing to admit that war has accomplished much in the progress of the world. I'm willing to admit that there are certain...
Okay. So now what we can do is figure out. So he says, I am willing.
I am willing to...
So right here is an L sound. So right at this frame, this is where I want to switch to my L, which in my mouth up here, I can go through and just simply D, and we see L happens to be the second to last one. X is the final frame. So it's easy to remember. Being X, we just go to the end of the list. So now I change that to L. And I'll leave, let's see, so now let's see.
I am willing to admit.
All right, yeah, I like that better because he's making that L sound, so we've attached that to it. That's perfect. So we're able to animate our mouth quite easily once we've created the face or the mouth shapes, name them, bring the audio in. Toon Boom has taken care of the rest. Now there will be times if there are bits and pieces in the audio where it's indeterminate sound, it will go to the X mouth, and sometimes it will do that, especially with the closed mouth consonant. Then it'll flicker back and forth, and you have to sometimes undo what it did to better.
I am willing to admit
clean
that
it up.
war has accomplished much in the progress of the world. I'm willing to admit that there are certain.
Okay, but this audio doesn't have any of those sounds, and it does seem to be working correctly. Next, we're going to take a look at how we might add in some eyes so that we can allow our character to blink as they're talking, and then we will even add in a peg for the head so we can move the head a little bit while the character is speaking to add even more lifelike qualities to it. To make my character blink, I need to figure out what that next eye shape is going to look like. And we have a couple of ways that we can go about doing this. I can delete these eyes entirely. I can just draw over the top, do some erasing and painting, and that's the option I'm going to use so that I stay somewhat on model. Going to turn on light table, turn on onion skinning. Well, now we're just going to draw over we'll create a whole new drawing using the old one as a guide. Zoom in a little bit to make it easier to better control it. So when doing blanks, it's nice to have not just to open shut, but to have an in-between. Otherwise, it will typically look like the eye is kind of shuttering, but not smoothly opening or closing. So what I want to do, wrong color active. Actually, let's not, I'm going to do a duplicate of it. And on this duplicate, it will be easier for the half closed one. And then for the fully closed, I'm going to redraw it completely. Because, and again, got to remember to choose my line color. And if we, I forgot, I think this was, no it wasn't. Okay, when we have the flattening on there, it's causing some, that's why that line disappeared. Well, now I want to go back to, well, we'll do one eye, then fix the other eye. And turn off onion skinning for now. Now let's go back, and in a full character rig we would have each eye on separate layers. We would even have the iris and pupil on a separate layer, so we can move that in between. And this way we're just trying to clean things up a little bit. So now with my paint tool, if I have flatten on, I sometimes will find that the lines want to disappear. While we do this, so like I'm redrawing almost everything, even though what I really just wanted was the people and iris to remain. So we can see how we're getting the sense of closing. I think I might throw a few little more crease there. And I'm just going to pull that up. Rotate that a little. I suppose if I had moved the pivot point when I went to rotate, it would have gone cleaner. So we can see how the eyes are closing. Now in this next frame, this is where I will want onion skinning, and I'm going to, we'll just duplicate and clean up the eye as needed. So with this now, no, I don't want that. And get rid of that. So now I'm creating my closed eye shape. Turn off onion skinning so we can see how now we have the appropriate frames. What I want to do at this point, my library, is let the eye be in my open eye. I suppose, I probably should paint the eyebrows with color as well, I'm realizing. As long as we're doing this, why not? So grab the paintbrush, make sure paint behind is turned on. And now with the eyes open, we're able to paint some eyebrows. Now if we go into the other eyes, and now I think I might want to not be quite as steep for that, so let's kind of in between. So we're here, here, and there. Don't know if I like quite that much lifting, but well, Yeah, it's a little, I think a little strong on the lifting. Need to pull it down just a little bit. Okay, I'm happier with that. Alright, but I want my character to have eyes wide open here, turn off our light table, and now we can decide, zoom out a little bit. Oh, maybe not quite that much. So the character's here. Let's figure out where I want him to blink.
I am willing to admit that
right here I'm going to throw in a blink. So that means I will switch this. Let's see, we're in frame 47, so we'll go to in between, hold that for 2, go to the fully close, hold that for 4, and then we'll go hold that for 2. Oh, wrong way. And then be back to open. So now if we watch this blink, it'll happen quick in the blink of an eye.
admits that war has a
So we can see it's not happening like, because it's not just a quick flash. Because if I'm here and just go to the full blink and then 1 frame later open the eyes back up, this, when we watch it,
war has accomplished much.
we can see where it just gives it a little flick, and that just doesn't look very natural.
That war has accomplished.
So that's not a great way to go about doing it. So we want to, ideally you should hold it for 2 frames so we can see it happen. Hold for 3 or 4 frames, or you might go 1 frame, 3 frames, 2 frames, or you can figure out the timing on what seems best for your drawings and character, but you need to make sure that you're holding it long enough so it doesn't just look like a stutter. So we need it to look smooth
That war has
like that, and then that gives a much better quality to the blink so it feels a little bit more natural. The final thing that we're going to do to wrap up lip syncing with our characters, just put some pegs on this character to tie it all together. So we'll need, if we're going to just use our standard operating procedure, I can just select all the layers and add a peg here. I can do it also in the node view. So if I click over into my node view here, hit Command or Control F twice. Now we can see it's kind of a cluster right there, but I can again spread things out by ordering the nodes. I'll start out and just order it up like this so we can see what's going on there. And so we have the head, the mouth, and the eyes. And what I want to do is to add another peg onto the head, and then I'm going to attach the mouth and eyes to that. So if I animate the head's master peg, it will move it. And then I want to add in another peg here. Peg is going to be my master peg. And the master peg is going to control the head, and it's going to control the body. So once I have all of those set up, if I want to clean up my node view as well as my timeline a little bit, I can select all of those, right click, and choose group with composite. Now that creates a composite and named it mouth. We don't really like that, but I'm going to call this Taft-G for group. Close that. All right, and now I'm going to open this, because what I want to do when I exit full screen view is I want to set some pivot points for these. So if I click on the eye peg and I grab my rotate tool, I can set the pivot point for the eyes. So if I wanted to kind of wiggle them a little bit, move them up or down, I could. I can now click on the mouth, set a pivot point for that. For the head, set the pivot point kind of what would be, I'm picturing that the head moves, it attaches kind of at the base of the neck, so that makes sense to animate it from there. The body, we will just set it down here, and then if we go up and choose our master peg, we can put that kind of wherever we want on screen. So now we're ready to start animating. I can now go to frame 1 and insert a keyframe. And now let's kind of get a sense here.
I am willing.
So I want, right as he's going to start speaking here, I am going to choose the head. Oh, I set the wrong head pivot. I want this head pivot, not the head artwork to be, well, both head pivots can be there, but I want this head to line up. So now at this point, I'm going to insert a keyframe, and 2 frames later, actually, now on this frame right here for that head pivot, I am going to, let's just grab my animation tool, and just pull his head down right as he's going to start speaking. And now, a thing to remember, in my preferences, I have set up stop motion keyframes, focus on mouse enter. Those are my 2 go-tos. And then we'll add in tweening afterwards. So we start out, we're here, moves the head down, and right here on frame 19, I'm going to pull the head back a little bit. So now if we hit play and watch this,
I am willing to admit.
so he's going to throw it back as he got louder, and then 2 frames, 3, 4 frames later, again setting these key poses on odds is always recommended. Willing to, okay, good. And right as he's doing his blink here, I'm going to insert a keyframe, so he's been holding that, and then during this blink, going to pull the head down, and then as he finishes the blank, bring the head back. Okay, so let's see what we got here.
I am willing to admit that war has accomplished.
Okay. Now, we can continue this through the entirety of the 2.5 minutes of audio. If I keep extending my scene length and keep extending my exposures, it will automatically map the mouth to it. It's already stored that information for the entirety of the audio file. Now I'm going to turn these into motion keyframes. So now we can see we have, it won't be quite as jumpy.
I am willing to admit that war has accomplished.
Okay, so that's a little too much when he blinks right here. That's moving down a little further than I would like, so let's just pull it back just a smidge. That's better. All right. So as you can see, we can use our previous knowledge of starting to rig out a character. Now this isn't fully rigged. I've just set up a few things but followed some decent practices. I should go back and rename everything so I don't get -p. That's not ideal, but for now this is going to work and show us that we can make a character talk and blink through the magic of lip syncing and through drawing substitution. So by working with a given layer, we have these substitute drawings we can work with, whether it's for the eyes, which I could name these. I could name this, eye open, eye half closed, eye closed. So I could name those so then it's easier instead of 1, 2, 3. What is it? I don't know. So it's not a bad idea to do that as well if that helps you while you're animating. If you know that that's all, the only eyes you have, don't need to worry about it. Now, we can use the same technique for hands. So if you need to modify the hands or feet of a character, so you can go through all different hand positions. So a hand, where you see the back of the hand, the front of the hand, the fingers, gesturing, pointing, and grabbing, and all kinds of things. We can do all of that through the magic of drawing substitution, which is pretty crazy. Good luck and have fun.